My name is Joshua Johnson, and I work for a national nonprofit called Jobs for the Future. I'm the director of the National Innovation Hub for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility in Registered Apprenticeship. I became incarcerated in May of 1995, and I was released in December of 2004. So I've been out here going on 18 years in the next couple months. I'll be celebrating 18 years of freedom. I have an 11-year-old son that was born in 2010. He was probably one of the biggest highlights I've had. The second biggest accomplishment is my marriage that I'm in now. My wife that I married in 2018, Michelle. My wife she had 4 kids from a previous relationship. So now essentially I have 5 children. And as I look at all 5 of them, I think about, for me, the accomplishments, not only that I've made in my life, but what they've made. And then lastly, a month ago, I became a first-time grandfather. While I was in prison, obviously, 10 years of sun up and sundown, depending on whether you're in a maximum security or I was in Texas in a county jail or in a medium security than in a minimum security. One of the things that you definitely have a lot of time to do is think. And for me, I want to say that most of those days were spent thinking about what I was going to do when I got out. I read a lot. I will tell you, in school, I did not want to read. I didn't want to do schoolwork, but I found myself getting immersed in books and getting lost in books and finding myself understanding parts of life or what life could be about through books. I also spent a lot of time hanging out with friends that I met in there that were had same interest, that were focused on the same mentality of I don't ever want to go back to prison. Many times when people get out of prison, they're so embarrassed about being in prison that they're afraid to talk about it. And because they're afraid to talk about it, no one knows. And because no one knows, many times judgment becomes passed on them. Or what is even more detrimental is, if no one knows, someone may have a connection to something that could help you to advance in your life, but they don't even know how to make that connection because they don't know that you've been to prison. And as you get out of prison, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to lean on folks and ask for help. Find a way to hold on to that and get connected to the people you need to that can then help you and grow, be successful. I always think back to myself, as I rose through, once I was released from prison, I worked on the dock loading trucks with construction equipment. Then I became an apprentice, working on highways. Then I left, started my own company. Then I went and started to work for state government with Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Then moved my way up to working for the Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards. And once I got into Bureau of Apprenticeship Standards, I went from an entry-level apprenticeship training representative to the section chief, which is middle management, then to the state director, which is a career executive position within state government. So the same state government that I was incarcerated, I was under Department of Corrections. I'm now a bureau director, career executive in the Department of Workforce Development. So when I think about the phrase correcting the narrative, I'm instantly drawn back to actually what the narrative is, which is men and women who go to prison, basically, and this is my narrative, what I see, men and women who go to prison will never amount to anything. And to me, that is akin to saying at any point in your life, if you make any type of mistake, basically the rest of your life is just doomed. I always think back to a story of a job that I had where a woman was she had someone she was mentoring at the job who was younger, and I had to have a conversation with the young woman. We talked for a little bit, and when she went back to her mentor told her to make sure she never leaves her purse sitting on her desk because I had been to prison before. So that's when I think about the narrative, right? I think about this fact that people think just because what you've done determines who you will be. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that, I've stood up in front of a room of 1,000 people. No one in the room knew that I was a convicted felon. And I start telling my story, and then I get down and I say, my name is Joshua Johnson, otherwise known as inmate number 305178. And you can hear a pin drop in the room because I'm in there in a suit and a tie. And it's their mentality that that's not what inmates look like. That's not what people who've committed crime look like. You're not it. That's just not it. When in reality, I ask people, what does that look like? Because I know many people who've been to prison who wear suits and ties. I know people who've been to prison who wear jeans and a t-shirt. I know people who've been to prison who are very wealthy and own businesses, own big businesses. So to me, correcting the narrative is making it very well known that just because you've been to prison, just because you made a mistake in life, does not mean the rest of your life you just have to give up on, or anyone else should give up on you. I received a full governor's pardon in July of this year, so July of 2022, in which basically erase the fact that you can search and find out that I've been a convicted felon. Seeing where I came from, a kid who decided in 1995 at 17 years old to pick up guns and rob people on the east side of Milwaukee, to becoming a person who on a national level is trying to create change and create opportunity for men and women to get access points into registered apprenticeship. More importantly, helping men and women who have transitioned out of prison understand they have value, and as well as get them engaged in registered apprenticeship, get them engaged in careers. To me, if you want to talk about a poster child for correcting the narrative, I feel like I definitely could be one of those folks on that poster talking about where I've come from and where I'm at, and more importantly, where I'm going. Because the story isn't done yet, and I think that's the danger that folks have, is they feel like that the story is done, but you really have to continue to keep pushing forward because you just don't know what's out there.